Primary biliary cholangitis PBC is a rare chronic autoimmune disease that slowly destroys the small bile ducts in the liver. As the damage builds, it triggers inflammation, fibrosis, and can eventually lead to cirrhosis. Strikingly, Montel, women are affected nearly 9 times more often than men.
Wow. Well, while there's no cure, hope lies in raising awareness and promoting early diagnosis before cirrhosis, when the disease can be treated or even managed.
Let's go behind the mystery.
When I was around 48 years old, I started feeling different, really tired and not like myself. Being a busy mom and grandmother and running my own child care, family business, I just put it off as being really busy and not having time for myself. Sometimes I would get forgetful about stuff, and sometimes headaches. And sitting down and resting or even trying to take a nap didn't help. The feeling just wouldn't go away. I had an appointment with my doctor to go do routine labs, and I explained how I was starting to feel different. And then he called me back about a week or so later and told me he wanted me to come in and do some more labs. And then following that, he called me in and said, "It doesn't look good. It looks like you might have PBC." And when I left that appointment, I felt devastated. My mother had hepatitis and had a liver transplant. And I've seen end-stage liver disease, and it really petrified me.
Dr. Marina Reutman is a clinical professor and director of the liver program in Fresno at the University of California, San Francisco.
Primary biliary cholangitis is an autoimmune disease of the liver. Specifically, what happens is that our own immune system attacks the bile passages in the liver. This attack causes the bile to flow out of the bile ducts into the rest of the liver. The liver is injured by this bile that it's not supposed to be there, and that in turn causes other immune cells to come in and try to help the liver, and that causes further inflammation and further damage of the liver. PBC primarily affects women between the ages of 45 and 65. Other patients that PBC might affect are those with a genetic predisposition, not only to PBC, but to other autoimmune conditions. PBC and other autoimmune liver diseases are not caused by any personal choices, anything that the patients may do, including drinking alcohol. Autoimmune disease happens for reasons that we don't clearly understand. The challenging part about diagnosing PBC is it can be completely asymptomatic in the early stages of the disease. The 2 most common symptoms of PBC are fatigue and itchiness, also known as pruritus. And fatigue can be disabling to some of the patients, to the point that they're unable to work, they're unable to take care of the families, and they oftentimes need a daytime nap. The itchiness or pruritus can be very troubling as well, and it can be worse at night. So patients' sleep is disrupted. That certainly exacerbates the daytime fatigue and sleepiness the next day. Other symptoms may include abdominal discomfort, which usually happens on the right side of the abdomen, joint pains, dry mouth, dry eyes, and as the disease progresses, we can start seeing yellowing of the skin and eyes, also known as jaundice. Undiagnosed or untreated PBC, or the disease that has not responded well to treatment, may lead to progressive liver scarring or fibrosis, which may lead to cirrhosis, liver cancer, and eventually to liver failure.
When we come back, the complexities of diagnosing PBC. Welcome back. We're discussing primary biliary cholangitis, or PBC. And as with many autoimmune diseases, symptoms can often be overlooked or unnoticed, and many patients don't receive a diagnosis until significant liver damage has already occurred.
Experts say improved screening protocols, greater awareness among healthcare providers, and better patient education are key to detecting the disease earlier.
A concern for PBC can be triggered on a routine blood test. What we usually see is elevated alkaline phosphatase, which is one of the liver enzymes, along with elevated liver enzymes known as AST and ALT. When the diagnosis of PBC is suspected, patients should be referred to a specialist, a hepatologist, or a gastroenterologist. Basically, there are 3 criteria that are needed for diagnosis of PBC. Those criteria include elevated alkaline phosphatase, or ALP, presence of antimitochondrial antibody, and a liver biopsy. However, only 2 out of the 3 criteria are necessary for diagnosis. And 95% of patients have this positive antimitochondrial antibody as well as elevated alkaline phosphatase. Once we diagnose PBC, it is important that we stage the disease. We want to distinguish between early disease, where just the inflammation is present, from the more advanced disease, where scarring begins to be present, because this will determine how aggressive we will go after the treatment.
The doctor explained that there are treatments available to help manage the progression and that PBC is not a death sentence. And that actually made me feel a little more hopeful. The first year of being diagnosed with PBC was really hard. I didn't understand a lot of the PBC stuff, and I had a hard time finding information. And anybody I talked to just didn't understand the disease. I felt very isolated. My family didn't understand. Everybody always said, "You look good, you don't look like you're sick." I knew that PBC was going to progress, and I wasn't sure how long, because my fatigue and my itchiness was telling me something was wrong with my body. And in my mind, I thought that my PBC was getting worse. And I really felt like there was a black cloud hanging over me.
The main goal of PBC treatment is normalization of alkaline phosphatase, or ALK-Phos, as it is a marker of disease stability. Normalization tells us that the disease is no longer aggressively damaging your liver. The first line of therapy is a medication called ursodiol, also referred as Urso. It works very well for many patients. However, about 40% of patients will need additional medication, or what we call a second line of treatment, either because they have not achieved normalization of ALP, or because they're having symptoms and are unable to tolerate the first line of treatment, or ursodiol. Today, we have more treatment options than ever to help you to stay ahead of the disease.
I meet with my healthcare team regularly now, and I've been on Urso for over 13 years. So while on treatment, I still have the fatigue, which comes with brain fog, and I also have the itchiness still. But that is something that I've learned that I can live with, as long as I knew that my lab values were in normal range. And take one day at a time. I know that the symptoms do come with the disease. Over the last couple of years, my ALP values slowly started to rise above normal, and that led to my doctor introducing a second line treatment option for me. I was really concerned about starting a new medication, but my doctor explained to me that it was okay. Being on the new medication has helped. I've educated myself in PBC through the years. I've joined a few groups on Facebook to read other stories. And in doing so, I've learned that I have PBC. PBC does not have me.
Community is essential after a disease diagnosis. In fact, it can be a lifeline. Let's hear from one woman who is helping others find the answers and support they need.
It was wintertime about 5 years ago, and I was a little fatigued, tired, but I thought it was just the winter blues. And so by middle of January, late January, I started to see that The blues wasn't going away, and my get up and go was gone. So I reached out to my primary care physician, went in, he ran some labs. My liver enzymes had been elevated, but he really just kind of discounted my concerns. The next month, it continued to get worse. My body was telling me something was different. I reached out to my primary care physician. He said, yeah, it looks like your liver enzymes are elevated. It could be your liver, it could be your bones. The next morning, I called the hepatologist's office. On Monday, I got in, they ran labs, and by Wednesday at 3 a.m., I got a notification that said positive for primary biliary cholangitis. It was devastating. And what I read was frightening. It said it was a liver disease, and talked about mortality, talked about a liver transplant. I didn't get any sleep that night. Where I found the most resources that were relevant and current was from the PBC Foundation. It was still isolating because I didn't know another person that had the condition. And I had an opportunity to connect with the CEO for the PBC Foundation. We met virtually, and they invited me to come over to the UK to the Volunteers Conference and to become their first US patient volunteer. And it was life-changing for me. I took on a sense of responsibility to help other patients here in the US. It was devastating when I got the diagnosis and did not receive a soft handoff to someone that would be able to help me understand that this is not the end of it. It's just the beginning of figuring out my new normal. And I just think that making sure that everyone knows they have access and they deserve answers, and that's why I'm doing this work.
More from the Friends of the PBC Foundation when we come back. Welcome back, everyone, to Behind the Mystery. We're discussing primary biliary cholangitis, or PBC. We've heard some really impactful stories today, Montel.
No ifs, ands, or buts, and we sure have. And the common theme here is the importance of early diagnosis and awareness and advocating for yourself.
So important. We're joined by El-Marie Assad, president of the Friends of the PBC Foundation, and Jacqueline Candelario from the foundation as well. Welcome, ladies. So great to see you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Look, Jacqueline, let's start with you. You've also been diagnosed with PBC, right?
Yes, that is correct.
So tell us a little bit about your journey.
My journey started prior to 2021. I was experiencing symptoms, itching, bottom of my feet, my hands, something very strange. It happened at night mostly, fatigue. By the time I would get home from work, I was exhausted to the point that I had to take a nap. The fatigue was really taking the best of me, which eventually led me to reach out to my primary care physician. Blood work came back positive for elevated liver enzymes, which was not something that I was aware of until she looked at my records from a couple of years before, and she noticed the increase. She couldn't understand what was the reason for the elevation. At that point, she tells me, it's out of my hands, I'm gonna have to refer you to the gastrologist. The initial diagnosis came back as autoimmune hepatitis. In order to confirm that, I did have a liver biopsy, and 4 weeks later, I found out that I was diagnosed with PBC.
And that's what led you to El-Marie, right, and the foundation?
Eventually, yes. In seeking support and resources after the diagnosis, I went through a very difficult time dealing with this new normal that I had to deal with. I was invited to speak at an event about my journey with PBC. And from there, we connected. I was very excited to see someone else that was dealing with the same thing that I was dealing with and understood.
That makes such a difference to have someone be able to bond with you in something so rare. Absolutely. El-Marie, let me bring you in. I know we heard a little bit about your story earlier in the show, but tell me a little bit more about the Friends and the Foundation, if you will.
So the Friends of the PBC Foundation is a new nonprofit organization specifically focused on supporting U.S. patients. And it really is a bridge to the general PBC Foundation, which is essentially based in the UK. It's one of those conditions you can't look at anyone and tell that we have PBC, right? But the symptoms, the way that it impacts our life is truly astounding, and the foundation is there to really lift up patient voices.
I am very excited to be a part of this because it's something that is bigger than myself. We want to bring awareness that, if you're feeling something, do not be afraid to be a voice.
Marie, you're very special as well, as an African-American woman, and obviously not typically in the PBC demographic. I know that really inspired you and motivated you to start this foundation, right?
Yeah, for sure. Initially, I thought, am I the only Black person with PBC?
That's impossible.
Right, exactly.
But you're the only one there.
Right, I am the only one there. And so one of the reasons why I've stepped up is because I think it's so important, first of all, for us to be at the table. And social media has helped. With the Friends of the PBC Foundation, we've been connecting with patients and inviting them to our conference so they have an opportunity to meet others in person so that they know that they are not alone.
Good for you.
We got to take a little break, but when we come back, we're going to see how industry and advocacy are teaming up and the powerful impact they're making together. Well, welcome back to Behind the Mystery. We've been speaking with Marie and Jacqueline from the Friends of the PBC Foundation.
And joining our group now is Caroline Donay from Gilead Sciences. Welcome, Caroline. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Olga.
So we've been talking a lot about the importance of community and how it's a lifeline for so many people out there. You have a personal connection to the rare disease community as well, don't you?
That's right. Having a son diagnosed with a rare genetic disease, I understand that shock of the initial diagnosis with a disease that you've never heard of before. And so I set out to find as much information as possible and connect with as many parents and patients who I could learn from. And what I quickly found that both of these were challenging. And so I think I really have kind of a unique perspective, and that really affects how I show up to support the PBC community. And at Gilead, one of our areas of focus is providing education to help people understand their diagnosis and also connect patients and physicians together to advance education and to advance treatment.
That's great. Well, I read something by Gilead. It stated, going beyond medicine. Tell us about that.
So at Gilead Sciences, we are really focused on discovering, developing, and delivering really innovative medicines to patients that are facing life-threatening diseases, because we know that the medicine itself, it's only a part of the solution, right? It really goes much beyond that. And so we take a holistic approach, really focused on education, community engagement, and access so that we can really achieve our goal of improving global health outcomes. Gilead has a really unique legacy in liver disease, actually, curing hepatitis C and also treating hepatitis B. And so now, in focusing on PBC, our goal is really to help address another significant unmet need in the liver disease space.
So let's talk about partnering with the PBC community and the impact it will have on the industry.
At Gilead, we really care deeply about patients, the patient journey, and so one thing we focus on is bringing as many insights as possible and as much data as we can gather to help drive change for patients. And that often happens in partnership with patients and the advocacy community. And a recent example of that specifically is this All the Feelings with PBC campaign, developed in collaboration with Gilead Sciences, the PBC Foundation, and Friends of the PBC Foundation. And the goal of the campaign really is to help support more open conversations around the symptoms of living with PBC. And at the center of this campaign is just a beautiful series of paintings that showcase the physical and emotional aspects of living with PBC.
And Marie, I heard you help contribute to this program by expressing some of the symptoms that you have, right?
We had an opportunity to be there and witness healthcare professionals from all over the world. They also had an opportunity to hear the voice of the patient in their ear while they're witnessing the powerful journey that each of the patients had an opportunity to share. And for many, it was very emotional.
And Jacqueline, there's another artwork also in the campaign that you can share with us?
Yes, that is correct. This particular artwork is very impactful because it talks about the heaviness of having to deal with the fatigue day in and day out.
Caroline, how is Gilead working with the community to provide not only resources but education as well?
It's really about education and connection and really empowering patients to manage life with their disease. And it's one of the reasons that we created morethanpbc.com. So it's an educational website that we developed specifically for people living with PBC and also the family members and friends who support them. And it contains a wide range of resources. We really want people to feel supported, educated, and never alone.
You know, Marie, it's important to have advocacy groups like yours be able to reach out and have the support of the pharmaceutical companies and industry, right?
Yeah, it's critical to bring the PBC patient community together and have the patients sit at the table with industry leaders, and we learn, we get the education. In addition to that, we know that there's so many other people yet to be diagnosed, and so it's so important to continue to build upon that community and ensure that those patients understand that there's support and, again, that they are not alone.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing today.
Thank you.
That's
For
right.
sure.
Thank you for sharing your personal stories. And of course, if you need resources and support for PBC, go to morethanpbc.com and friendsofthepbcfoundation.org.
And of course, you can always go to our website, thebalancingAct.com. We'll see you next time.